Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Gary Holt from Exodus and formerly from Slayer, and you're listening to The Razor's Edge.
Julian, welcome to the Razor's Edge.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Before we talk about the new Heriot album, if we jump back in time a little to the days before the band, how did you personally get into heavy music?
It's mainly because of my parents. They didn't really listen to heavy metal, but kind of music was always on in the house. Kind of like Kerrang and Scuzz was always on TV, so I kind of discovered the heavier side of things by staying up late by myself, and seeing what was on Scuzz at like 1 in the morning. But yeah, it was probably hearing Slipknot when I was like 10 years old that kind of
Yeah.
did it for me. That was like my gateway band, if you call it that. Yeah, and it wasn't a phase, unfortunately, for my parents.
Never grew out of it.
No, I didn't.
So how did Heriot first come together back in 2014?
So we originally a three-piece, and the three of us went to school together. So we've known each other since we were like 13, maybe something like that. We kind of met in secondary school. And we've been in bands together over the years, some good, some not so good. But Harriet kind of started when we finished college, I think.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and Debbie joined in 2019, and we kind of rebranded everything apart from the name. The only thing that really stayed put was the name, but everything else kind of changed when Deb joined.
It's interesting you say that. I noticed earlier in your press release for the new album, you talk about your previous or your press officer talks about your previous EP as being your debut EP. But obviously you had two before Deb joined as well. So have you written that phase of the band off?
Yeah, kind of. Like it's not like we're not proud of that kind of stuff, but it's so far removed from what we're doing now. And I think when Deb kind of in, it kind of changed the whole dynamic of the band. So it felt like the right thing to do. We don't touch any of that old material. I don't think any of us know how to play any of that old stuff anymore either. But I'm sure it's still out there,
Yeah.
for anyone who wants to kind of dig around and find it. But yeah, I think there was just such a big gap between like the older stuff and then when we kind of restarted as well that it felt kind of pointless to continue with the older stuff because no one knew it anyway. Like nobody really cared about us back then. So it didn't really matter too much that we kind of disowned that
Yeah.
material.
Yeah, understandable. So we're effectively a decade into Heriot as a band, and
Mm.
only now seeing your debut full-length album. So, what has taken you so long to get to this point?
Yeah, so like saying about like kind of breaking up the band into two different parts, I think like the original three-piece Heriot kind of existed and run its course. It kind of only really split just because Jake kind of went to uni, moved out of the town we lived in, and it's kind of we just lost steam with it. And then I think it was 2011 sometime, Deb's old band was breaking up, and we were kind of just starting to get Heriot back together. Like we were thinking of kind of starting it back up again. So it all kind of just fell into place at the right time. So I think for us, we kind of see like mid 2019 as like as our start, even though it's like unofficially. Um, but I think we've just been kind of really calculated and cautious with everything since then. Like we didn't want to put out an album when we did Farmer Alley because I just don't think we were ready for it. We wanted to kind of experiment a little bit more. Um, so yeah, once obviously we knew we had to make an album at some point, but I feel like when we started working on this, which was March last year, I think. We were just ready for it. I think like we had enough experience with touring and stuff, and I think yeah, if we'd released an album back in 2022, I don't think it'd been very good to be honest if we did it then. So I'm glad we kind of took the time and with our approach.
And it's interesting you talk about taking the time because you see a lot of like bands coming up unsigned, releasing album after album whilst they are unsigned, self-releasing stuff, and then disappearing off the face of the earth. So, did you consciously choose to build yourself and get that deal before releasing a full length?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like before Profound, we didn't want to put an EP out straight away without having an audience there. So like we put like the singles out beforehand to kind of build an audience before, okay, we signed with Church Road. obviously independent label, but it was kind of the stepping stone that we wanted. That's what platform we wanted for that. So then it was the same again with the album. Like Profound did great, way better than we could have expected. But then like we still did a few singles in between,
Mm.
just to kind of keep the momentum up. Because obviously putting a record together is like a it's quite a big task and it takes quite a bit of time. So we wanted to make sure we were still consistent with new material coming out that wasn't on the album, but still kind of kept people's interest. Because there is, I guess, it essentially took us like 4, maybe 5 years to make this album. If you think of like when we restarted. So, but it was all intentional to do it that way. We wanted to make sure that there was an audience there and everything was done at the right time, which probably in today's standards isn't normal because everyone just wants things instantly. But hopefully it's worth the wait.
Absolutely. I've been listening today, and I think it is worth the wait. But do you think it has served you better to wait that period of time rather than rushing everything out?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I honestly think if we made a record like 2 years ago, it just wouldn't be up to the standard. Like, I think we were still kind of figuring out what we wanted to do. We had a lot more time to kind of sit on material and come back to it and work it, whereas usually we just write something, record it, and put it out. So it's quite nice to actually spend a little time on it and make sure because it's our kind of first full body of work that like it's 100% what we want it to be. And I mean that we've been sat on it for quite a long time now, and we all still love it, which is good because it's not even out yet. But usually, kind of in the past, we put some stuff out and then go, oh, I wish we could revisit this. But with how everything is so instant, we've never had that opportunity before. So yeah, it's all been calculated, but it's all gone very quick as well. It's very weird. It feels it's all gone very fast, even though it is on paper a long time.
Yeah, yeah. So the debut album, Devoured by the Mouth of Hell, is released on September 27th. And I have had it on repeat for a couple of days now. How happy are you with that album?
Very. It's a weird thing. I listened to it for the first time in a long time last week, just because it's nice to detach yourself a bit from it once you've been working on something for so long. You kind of lose all perspective. Like if you kind of go, is this actually any good? Is anyone gonna like this? But I listened to it the first time last Friday, I think, in a long time, and I'm still really proud of it. I think it sounds great. Um, yeah, I think it's wicked.
Excellent. So what went into the writing of a Heriot album? Is it a group effort? Do you all get together and write the album, or is it people bringing full-blown songs to the table?
It's a bit of both, really. Jake's kind of like our whole core songwriter. He kind of brings the most to the table. And sometimes it is full songs that he's like fully happy with, and then sometimes it's kind of bits and pieces that we tend to flesh out together. But because we all live in 4 different cities, it's quite hard for us to all get together. So when we do get together, we make sure it's as productive as it can be. So the bulk of the record was written over like 2 1 week periods.
Yeah.
One in November 2022, it must have been. No, it wasn't. It was March 2023 and then November 2023. But yeah, it was basically just like 2 weeks. We were just almost 24 hours a day, like hardly any sleep, just sat around a laptop making music. And then we went over summer and we did a bunch of festivals and stuff. And then we came back to that material basically. But it's kind of similar to how we've always worked. It's just making sure that we're really productive with the time that we've got, basically.
And a lot of times drummers get overlooked in the writing process of music, I think. So how much of the music on this album has your stamp on it?
Um, I'd say quite a bit because it's so collaborative. Like I said, we all sit around a laptop and piece things together. Like I always trying to help with the structuring and things, which I think even Jake would admit isn't his strong points. I think we've all got our like the strengths within the band, which means it's really good when we come together. There's no kind of infighting or anything like that of who gets the most control over this, and that. It's all kind of just once we're all together, we're really focused and we get the job done. Um, but yeah, like honestly, it's a split like 25% we're all responsible. Like we all have our split kind of songwriting credits and stuff like that. So yeah, it's all really collaborative.
Excellent. So you signed with Century Media last year, was it? I think.
Yes.
How much help has having a big name label like Century Media been to the whole production process of this album?
Yeah, it was great. Like, obviously, a big part of that is having a budget to play with that's
Yeah.
as an independent and you don't really have until you get a label that kind of backs you. But yeah, they're really trusting with us as well. They kind of just let us crack on and do whatever we wanted. We never really showed them any demos or anything like that. We kind of just kept it all to ourselves until it was time to hand in, which is a good job. They liked it by the time we handed it in hindsight. But I think the big thing was like having video budget. We've always kind of put a lot into our visuals and
Mm.
tried to make the best we can with like a very low budget. So to be able to kind of do all the things that we've always wanted to do um, with the label support was great. Like it was really weird at first to have kind of that pot to work with, but yeah, it's been great. Like obviously, it's we've never really had any marketing budget or anything like that, so it's been totally different to previous. But yeah, it's been wicked.
Excellent. So you were, or still are, one of the hottest properties on the British scene at the moment. So when that Century Media deal came about, were they the only ones interested in you, or were you courted by any of the other labels?
Um, I think there was a few. We went back and forth with a few different people, but Century Media, like from the start, were kind of like some a label we had our eyes on. Like we kind of wanted them. We met them over summer, I think, at a festival. I can't remember which one now, but a festival in Germany because I think they're based out in Europe. We met them a few times just in passing,
Yeah,
and they kind of just really showed way more interest than the rest. Like kind of we kind of got on with them really well, and there was that trust there straight away.
yeah,
Um, yeah, they've been great. It's been really good.
excellent. So the album comes out in a couple of weeks, and the majority of the press have a copy of the album now to listen to. So as the reviews and the critiques come in, do you pay attention to anything the press has to write?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm the kind of guy who like Googles and puts see what's come up in the last 24 hours. I'm that kind of person, which is probably really not good to do for your mental health if things aren't positive. But it's exciting because kind of no reviews have come out yet. But obviously, doing these kind of press talks and things, you kind of get people's initial reaction. And everyone's said it's great. Everyone's loving it so far. So fingers crossed that the people out there think the same because we're really proud of it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm loving it, and I'm interested to see now. I've seen you live a number of times. I'm interested to see how this new material will translate live now as you start playing again in the hopefully near future. So, um,
Yeah, sure.
before we finish up, I want to talk about Metal to the Masses. It's part of your history. Well, when you were a free,
Mm.
obviously, but every year that 30 or so unsigned bands get to play Bloodstock because of that competition. How valuable of an experience was it for you?
It was nuts. Like I think when we did it, we tried to like take it in as much as we could because we thought we never might never get to do this again. Kind of the whole VIP backstage area and all that. So we kind of just ran with it and I had a blast. But yeah, it was great. Like we um we had a little press campaign around it as well at the time. Obviously it was still the older version of the band, but like it was timed with our EP release. I think it was around the same time. So I think it was 2016 that we did Melt to the Masses. Yeah, it was great. Like, and it was really cool to come back when we did. I think a couple of years ago to do Bloodstock. It was kind of nostalgic to be back up properly on the Sophie stage all those years later.
Yeah. So, and how long do you think it will be then before you step up to the main stage? You've got the label backing now. Your popularity is growing. Do you see yourself on?
Hopefully, yeah, hopefully as soon as like it'd be great. We've been waiting for an offer back. So yeah, if anyone from Bloodstock's watching, please do invite us back. We'd love to play again.
And just again on the Metal to the Masses thing, so many bands go through it, but off the top of my head, yourselves, Conjurer, maybe one or two others have actually taken maybe a couple more steps to get to the stage you're at now. Why do you think so few bands manage to make it past the next few steps after that?
I don't know. It's kind of really dog eat dog out there. There's so many bands, and it's I guess you have to kind of work really hard and sell yourself and make sure you stand out, I guess. I'm not sure that we probably did that as well as we could in the original version of the band, but I think we've been so focused since the kind of reiteration of the band. Yeah, It's difficult. Music is very hard and it takes up a lot of your time. Like obviously if you do music and it's not your full-time job, chances are you don't really do a lot else outside of those two things, outside of working in music. So yeah, it takes a lot of commitment and I think sometimes you don't really realize that until you get so far in and you realize that you got to really work to succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, as we've said, the album drops in a couple of weeks. What's next for the rest of the year for Heriot?
So we've got an album release show in Bristol on the day the record comes out, which sold out pretty quick, like within 3 or 4 days, I think. So Bristol's kind of like a second home for us. So we're really looking forward to that. And then we're touring the UK and Europe with Fit for an Autopsy and Silosis right up until Christmas, pretty much. And then yeah, we'll see how the record does, and we'll see what next year's looking like for us.
Excellent. Julian, thanks for your time this evening. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Devoured by the Mouth of Hell is released on September 27th via Century Media, and I wish you all the best with it. It is really a killer album, and I can't wait for everyone else to hear it as I have.
Nice one. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you keep up to date with all of our interviews by subscribing to our channel. For all the latest news, reviews, interviews and more, head over to our website, www.therazorsedge.rocks.